What's going on, guys? It's me, Zach, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. And this one, I'm going to go over each of the teams in the NFC North and how their off seasons have gone so far, and then sort of give you my anticipation for how that's going to affect them in the upcoming season compared to last. I'll try and touch on things that I think are also going to happen in the future as well. There might be some things that are sort of trending in a direction that haven't happened yet. I'll teaser for now. The Packers are probably going to trade Aaron Rodgers, even though that hasn't officially happened yet as of this recording. But things like that I think need to be accounted for as well. And then if there's any updates, I'm happy to address those as well later on. So yeah, with that, let's get into the first team. All right, so starting us off here with the Minnesota Vikings, there hasn't been a whole lot of in terms of additions for them. They added Brandon Powell. He's a speedy wide receiver from the Los Angeles Rams, and they're going to have pick 23 as well. They've been linked as a team that's very likely going to be interested in adding another receiver here. The reason for that's obviously because they lost Adam Thielen as well as losing Irv Smith. I don't think their receiving game really is going to change a whole lot. This is obviously Justin Jefferson's team. They're still going to be a pass-first offense, given what we saw from them last year. And I think TJ Hawkinson is in line to really be a potential breakout candidate this year. He really broke out at the end of last year, and there's no reason for me to believe he's not going to be at least their number two target this next season. He's plenty talented. This is a plenty good offense, and there's going to be a lot more coverage shaded toward Justin Jefferson. So I think TJ Hawkinson might end up being my tight end 2 or tight end 3 on the board coming into redraft this season. So super excited about him going forward. One other thing I do want to mention with the Minnesota Vikings is there have been a lot of trade rumors surrounding Dalvin Cook. It sounds like the Vikings were really looking to move him this offseason before he had surgery and sort of made that more difficult on them. But they did re-sign Alexander Mattison to a 2-year, $7 million deal. So given the running back contracts we saw this offseason, that's actually a pretty sizable commitment to him. And I think they're just more than okay to move on from Dalvin Cook. The Dolphins have been linked to the team that might be looking to add Dalvin. So if Dalvin Cook were to leave, I think Alexander Mattison would be a low end running back 1 this next season because there's not really whole much depth behind him at that position. Obviously, that's pending what happens in the NFL draft. But I think that the Vikings are going to be a good enough offense that whichever running back is a workhorse there, it's very valuable to have that running back. Dalvin Cook right now would be a low-end running back 1 if the season were to start today with him on the roster, and I think Madison pretty much slots in right there. I'm in a dynasty league where I did trade for Alexander Madison this offseason just on the off chance that this trade happens. So I would be surprised probably at this point to see Cook get moved, but I think it's one of the more possible trades that we could see in the rest of this offseason. So keep an eye on that going forward. Next up, we have the Chicago Bears. They've been one of the more active teams this offseason, so I was really excited to talk about them. They've added a ton on this offense. They've added DJ Moore in a trade from the Carolina Panthers. They also added Deonta Foreman to backfill from losing David Montgomery. They've added Travis Homer as well, and they added Robert Tonyan. So overall, I think that this running back room is still going to be led by Khalil Herbert, given that David Montgomery's gone. We saw Khalil Herbert really show out as just a really talented player last season. I still think this is going to be a subpar offensive line and a subpar offense in general, so I'm not in love with either running back option here between Foreman and Herbert, but I do expect Herbert to be the main guy there, and I think he'll be like a low-end running back 2 going into the season, and if he does manage to win the role or if we see an injury at either one of these guys, I think they're both going to be very usable players, especially if one misses time. Robert Tonyan showing up pretty much to me makes Cole Kmet irrelevant. I think he's going to steal enough looks away from the tight end position that already wasn't getting enough. So I think you can pretty much ignore the tight end position on this team. And DJ Moore to me, it's pretty much in the same spot he's been in his entire career. He's going to be a really talented receiver on an offense that's not going to put up a ton of passing yardage. So he's probably still like a mid-tier wide receiver 2 for me going into this next season. There is certainly that chance that we see Justin Fields take a step forward like we've seen a lot of other quarterbacks do when they get a top-tier receiver. So it's possible he might be worth grabbing just in case of that upside. But I think really, if anything, this offseason really shows how committed the Bears are to Justin Fields. Justin Fields is a really talented player. I think he's going to be a monster in fantasy this season. I already kind of have him pegged in as this year's Jalen Hurts. I think he's going to be a guy that I'm going to be targeting a lot in the middle rounds of drafts. There's just so much rushing upside for him, and if this offense can take a step forward at all, he's going to be great. And losing David Montgomery means he might be even more likely to get some red zone rushing touchdowns as well. There's way too good of weapons now surrounding him for him to not be good. This offensive line's still suspect, but he's more than athletic enough to make that work. And a receiving core of DJ Moore, Darnell Mooney, and Chase Claypool is honestly great. I think that outside of DJ Moore, neither one of those receivers is really going to be worth a whole lot. Darnell Mooney's probably going to be a low-end wide receiver 3, high-end wide receiver 4, and Claypool's probably going to be even further down there. I think he'll be a nice run blocker for them. He'll certainly be he'll have a couple spike weeks because that's what he does, but I don't think anybody other than DJ Moore, a running back from this team, and then Justin Fields is going to be super relevant on a consistent basis this next season. Moving on to the Detroit Lions here, I'm really excited about them this next season as well. They've certainly been a team that's on the rise. I think they're going to finally take that step forward and be a playoff team this year. They added David Montgomery to sort of backfill losing Jamal Williams, and they've added Marvin Jones, having lost DJ Chark. I don't think Marvin Jones is going to be super valuable. He certainly had some really great years in Detroit earlier on in his career, but I don't think he's going to do a whole lot. He's still going to be the wide receiver 3 on this team, behind obviously Amon-Ra and Jameson Williams. So Marvin Jones doesn't do much for me. He's just going to be a nice, maybe DFS play on occasion this season, but David Montgomery is certainly someone that I'm super excited about. I think that he's going to be sort of just filling that Jamal Williams role, but I think he's just a more talented player than Jamal Williams. They've made it pretty clear that they don't want DeAndre Swift to be a workhorse for them. He's going to be an 8 to 12 touch kind of guy. He'll get some of the receiving work, but David Montgomery's a better pass catcher than Jamal Williams. He's honestly been a really talented runner for Chicago these last years, just behind such a putrid offensive line that it's really hard for him to show out as much as I think he could. But this Lions team is certainly one that's found their way into the red zone plenty. I believe Jamal Williams led the NFL in 1-yard rushing touchdowns last season, and we saw him break the Lions record for touchdowns. So I would expect there to be some regression there for this team, but David Montgomery is certainly a guy that I'd expect to have double-digit touchdowns this season if he can stay healthy. And this is just a good offense, and David Montgomery's a really good player. I think David Montgomery for me is going to be like a high-end wide receiver 2, and I don't think he's getting that much respect overall on these draft boards. I think that honestly, he's going to be a draft day value come year to redraft leagues this year. But Montgomery, I think, is going to be a really nice value, and I think that I'm super excited about him. Jared Goff, again, he'll continue to be a low-end quarterback 1, high-end quarterback 2. And I am really excited about Amon-Ra and Jameson Williams. Amon-Ra, obviously, is going to be a low-end wide receiver 1 this season again. He's just super efficient, gets a ton of volume. He's just a really good player. And then we'll see with Jameson Williams. The hit rate on receivers that don't perform very well in their rookie year is honestly not great, but he does have that injury that really kept him out for a lot of the time. So I'm willing to write that off a little bit. I think Jameson Williams is a really talented player, and this is a good offense. So Jameson Williams could ball out as well, but he'd, for me, be like a low-end wide receiver 3 dart throw with upside. And last but certainly not least here, we have the Green Bay Packers. They have had a bit of a dud of an offseason in all regards. They really haven't added anybody of substance on this team, and they're going to lose Aaron Rodgers in all likelihood to the New York Jets. They have already lost Allen Lazard and Robert Tonyan, so this is just going to be a really young team. You're going to see Jordan Love throwing to guys like Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, and anyone else that can scrounge up at the wide receiver position. They don't really have a big name tight end on the roster as well. So this is going to be another team that certainly they're going to run through the running backs again. I'd expect Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon to be a really key point of this offense. You might see a lot of sets with both of them on the field. And honestly, it did look like Jordan Love was playing pretty well in the snaps that he did get last season. I am really excited about Christian Watson. I think he's a really talented player. So I think there's just a lot opening up for him. He'd be the guy that I'm most excited about because even with Jordan Love, I think that he's good enough and explosive enough that he could have a really good season. He could be a nice low-end wide receiver 2 with upside on a weekly basis. And then as far as the running backs go, I think that A.J. Dillon's going to be like a low-end running back 2. He's a big body. He's going to get that goal line work. And Aaron Jones is probably going to be like a mid-tier running back 2 this year. He has honestly never finished outside the top 10 at the running back position, but I'd expect this offense to take a step back, and I think touchdown regression is coming for him. He's getting a year older. I'd expect to see A.J. Dillon be a little bit more involved as well. So in general, I think this is a downgrade for everybody compared to last year, except for maybe Christian Watson because he's got that extra year, and he's just going to be the clear number 1 in this offense without Allen Lazard. So not super excited about this offense, but I think there'll still be a couple of fantasy-relevant pieces in A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones, and Christian Watson, and then Romeo Doubs could be a guy you take a shot on as well later on. So that'll be it for the NFC North here. The next video is going to be the NFC East. I'm going to try and crank these videos out pretty quick here. We've got 2 weeks until the NFL draft, so we're going to see a lot of turmoil coming over, and I want to be able to fill you guys in on that as well. So I'll try and get the next 6 videos out in the next 2 weeks. I guess I'll do 3 a week before the draft, and then we'll have a lot of updates for you guys coming after the draft. Going to try and really ramp up the content and maybe get the website up and going and try and get some more information out to you guys earlier this season than I did last season. It's obviously very early, but the earlier you start looking into this stuff, the better you're going to end up doing. I know most of you guys aren't as crazy about it as I am thinking about fantasy football in early April, but I live and breathe this stuff. I love it. So yeah, with that, thank you guys so much for watching. If this was your first time watching a video here, please take a minute to like the channel, subscribe to it, It means a lot. We're really trying to grow the channel as much as we can. I've got a maybe outlandish goal of hitting 1,000 subscribers this season, so let's see if we can basically 3x our subscriber count this year. I've got big hopes. I think we can do it. So thank you again so much for taking the time, and I'll see you next time.